There are more than 2,000 bridges in Oregon's highway system. All play a vital role in trade and tourism. Many serve as monuments of Oregon's progress and industry. But sadly, far too many are now quickly becoming relics.
Most of our bridges were built before 1960, and they have a design life of about 50 years. So we have a huge number of bridges that are going to be needing work in the next 20 years.
Bruce Johnson is a bridge engineer for Oregon Department of Transportation.
We're trying really hard with the limited resources not to close bridges entirely, but we will be forced to restrict them to lower load limits.
A recent economic analysis shows restrictions could cost the state more than 100,000 jobs and $94 billion in production over the next 20 years.
Businesses are going to have to spend more money getting their products to market. They have less money to invest in their business, they're going to be less productive, and they're going to have fewer jobs for Oregonians.
Travis Brower, the assistant director of ODOT, says 61 bridges across Oregon are structurally deficient, meaning they need repairs to their decks and structures due to fatigue, corrosion, and years of overuse.
What we see is that coming in the future, every year we're going to have more and more bridges become structurally deficient, and we just don't have the money to take care of those.
Brower says the number of deficient bridges will nearly triple in the next 20 years.
We need to replace 27 bridges each year. Right now, we have enough money to replace 3 every year. At that rate, each bridge in Oregon is going to have to last about 900 years. That's just simply not going to work.
But the cost of not replacing structurally deficient bridges could be greater than expected.
A whole cluster of fire trucks and policemen. This is unreal. Unreal.
In 2007, the I-35W bridge in Minneapolis, Minnesota, collapsed into the Mississippi River, killing 13 people and injuring more than 100. The cause of the collapse? A design flaw in a steel plate more than 40 years old, just like the kind used in many of the steel truss bridges across Oregon.
If you start getting dirt and other things or corrosion...
Josh Loney is an ODOT bridge inspector. He and his crew look for any issues that could pose a future problem.
You'll see a little quarter-inch crack, and then maybe 2 years later it might grow a little bit more.
Loney says collapses due to age are rare, but he says Oregon could use new bridges altogether.
They get so old, they start getting deteriorated to the point where you're spending so much money trying to maintain them, it just makes more sense to replace them.
Although ODOT says it maintains the safety of its bridges through repairs and road restrictions, it may not be enough to defend against natural factors. The Loma Prieta earthquake in California in 1989 paved the way for bridges' seismic standards, but most of the bridges in Oregon were built before that.
We have 1,000 bridges in Western Oregon that are going to have serious damage if we have one of these big earthquakes.
The vast majority in Western Oregon are at risk of being severely damaged, rendered unserviceable, subject even to collapse in many cases.
With the threat of a hit to Oregon's economy and concern of catastrophic seismic damage, ODOT says the issue needs federal attention.
There will need to be, the legislature, federal government may need to step up and provide additional funding in order to avoid the worst of this.
ODOT says despite the fact some of its bridges are structurally deficient, it says none of its bridges pose an immediate safety threat. And regardless of whether or not it gets additional funding, it's going to put all of its resources into making sure every bridge in Oregon is safe. In Eugene, Oscar Maciel, KEZI 9 News.